The 2015 session of the General Assembly saw many successes coupled with many big missed opportunities for the business community.
Members of the legislature found compromise on solutions to shore up the state's road fund, pass telecommunications reform, and other high-profile issues this year. But perhaps the most talked about issue of the session was finding a way to address the state's heroin problem.
The anti-heroin bill, which has been in the works for 3 years, includes tougher penalties for dealers, funding for treatment across the state, the option for local governments to set up needle exchange programs, and a Good Samaritan provision as an attempt to curb the amount of overdose deaths.
Another issue that saw passage on the final night of the session was stabilization of the road fund, a top priority of the Kentucky Chamber.
After efforts by the Kentucky Chamber to urge legislators to reach an agreement on the issue, including action alerts from constituents and radio ads run across the state, legislators passed a bill that sets the floor at 26 cents on the state's gas tax and allows for annual tax adjustments rather than the current quarterly adjustments. The 26-cent floor is lower than the current gas tax rate of 27.5 cents per gallon. Lawmakers also passed chamber-supported telecommunications reform legislation, allowing telecom providers the flexibility to invest in new technologies.
While legislators found compromise on issues important to the state's health and infrastructure, there was no such accord reached on a slew of pro-business issues that would have helped create jobs in the state.
The Kentucky Chamber was a vocal advocate for public-private partnerships, also known as P3, to allow an alternative method for procurement, construction, or financing of capital projects and services by state government.
Another important bill overlooked this session, despite the bipartisan support behind the effort, was local option sales tax legislation, also known as LIFT.
The bill, which was co-sponsored by the leaders of each House caucus, would allow communities to vote on proposed projects for their area and let citizens decide whether or not they want to raise their sales tax by up to a penny. But the bill did not see the movement it needed this year.
Another important issue that failed to make it through the General Assembly was legislation to make Kentucky a right-to-work state, prohibiting requiring any worker to be forced to join a labor union.
I'm absolutely convinced that we are losing thousands of jobs per year in this state because we are not designated as a right to work.
But while the issue was not handled at the statewide level, a local right-to-work movement continues to grow across the state.
Legislation seeking to address the escalating costs directly attributed to Kentucky's uncontrolled medical liability climate also did not see passage this year, as the legislation was not heard in the House.
Advocating for a smoke-free Kentucky was also a priority of the Kentucky Chamber, as legislation covering all indoor workplaces and public places in Kentucky passed the House for the first time this year. Many Kentuckians are exposed to dangerous secondhand smoke on a daily basis, and Kentucky's smoking rate leads to higher health care costs.
You look at the expense of smoking in this state, it's not only killing us as a health matter, it's bankrupting us as a financial matter.
The persistent problems in the state's pension systems continued to be at the top of the Kentucky Chamber's list of priorities this session, as Chamber President Dave Atkinson penned an open letter to legislators about the need to address the issues. Some of the bills endorsed by the Kentucky Chamber were passed, but there were still many issues left on the table. One of those issues is the amount of money needed to shore up the Kentucky teachers' retirement system, and the comprehensive review of the system that the Kentucky Chamber believes is necessary. These issues remain at the top of the priority list for the Kentucky Chamber. Our organization will continue to work to advance these pro-business initiatives and help move the state forward.